let's get into it. Coach Colin here. What's going on, guys? Do you guys remember David? David, the guy who cheered. If you wanted to look him up, you could just write that into X and David will pop up. Now, David is very odd, and most people thought his reaction to Charlie Kirk passing away in front of everyone's eyes, getting hauled off by a bunch of, zero blood having on their hands security guards, everyone was blown away. But not David. David stood up and started cheering. He's that guy, if you don't remember. Here's a little clip of David. There's David just... You probably wondering how I got here, Like, he's in that type of moment right now. Big smile on his face. Couldn't be happier. Very, very odd individual. There he is, hands in the air, like he won the lottery. Just a ridiculous person. Absolutely ridiculous person. That's my opinion. You might think, this guy's normal. But I do not. I think this is nuts. And everybody did when they first saw it. And David got a lot of backlash. Now, what I didn't know is David actually got contacted by Candace Owens. Candace actually started going after David. And this is not like, oh, she made a video and she's like, who's this guy? No. She actually got in contact with him. This guy actually had to suffer the wrath of Candace Owens. But just so you know, this is what sparked everything. First, it was just that reaction that you just saw. Him cheering. And while he's cheering, he is yelling USA. As they're working on Charlie, as they're carrying Charlie away, he is screaming USA, USA. And he got a lot of backlash for this. And this is what he ended up saying. His reasoning for shouting USA. I know some of you have heard this before, but I have to position it like this because I want to show everybody who may not have seen this, who maybe doesn't watch the channel all the time, gotten a lot of new subscribers recently. Just want you to have the full context of this guy. So this was his explanation as to why he was cheering USA and smiling as big as possible.
Of mass shooting statistics. At that point, I did not see what happened directly. My head was lowered while I listened. When I heard a sharp crack, at first I thought it might have been fireworks or a disruptive prank, so I looked up to the horizon for smoke. When none appeared, I realized it must have been a firearm. My friend reacted in horror, saying Charlie had been struck. His voice and description told me how serious it was. Based on his reaction, I believed Charlie had been gravely injured. I instinctively checked the security team's movement, though I have no affiliation with them. Realizing the situation was dangerous, I stood and shouted USA, not as a provocation, but to project strength, encourage others, and create a distraction that might help calm panic or even save lives. At that moment, no one knew whether this was a lone shooter or something coordinated. My friend was devastated. He admitted he admired Charlie deeply. I only knew Charlie through minimal content, but would never wish to celebrate harm to anyone. Because of my background as a soldier, I was able to stay calm under stress, focus on protecting and comforting my friend. Afterward, I called my wife to let her know I was safe. Once traffic eased, we left.
So that's what he did in order to save lives, to comfort his friend. I have to say, servicemen, and thank you for your service there, Curly, and, they're usually very squared away individuals. And I can't think of one that I know personally that would think in their head, someone is bleeding out, and I think what I need to do now, after checking the security, is scream USA. Not protect my friend, not protect others, not look to the rooftops to see where this shot came from, or anywhere to see where the shot came from. But I'm going to scream USA, USA with a big smile on my face. Just like my drill sergeant taught me back when I first got into service. What are you talking about, man? And also, what's also very interesting after listening to this again? Listen to this part.
Charlie to adopt Mormonism, but the exchange drifted into a disjointed back and forth.
This is him talking about what was going on moments before this happened to Charlie. Guys, listen. The glasses just broke. Listen. Subscribe, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, turn on your notifications, Please, that is all I ask of you guys. There's so many of you that are not subscribed. Please subscribe, especially because, eventually they're going to catch on to this Philadelphia stuff. They're going to catch on eventually. They're going to figure out what I'm actually saying. Need your help before that happens, okay? All right? Subscribe. I'm out of here.
Opinions. The audience eventually booed him off the platform. Another speaker raised the idea of restricting gun rights for transgender individuals. Citing Donald Trump as an influence, he began to reference statistics and posed a question. Charlie's response turned to the subject of gang violence as a part of the mass shooting statistics. At that point, I did not see what happened directly. My head was lowered while I listened. When I heard a sharp crack, at first I thought it might have been fireworks or a disruptive prank, so I looked up to the horizon for smoke. When none appeared, I realized it must have been a firearm. Saying Charlie had been...
For him to, right at the time when the shot went off, he was the only person not looking. Isn't that odd? That's so odd. But let's go deeper into the original story, but we'll talk about that a little later. So I saw this article and I was like, oh, let me just read this article quickly. And that's when I found out he got a visit, via the internet from Candace Owens. So he's suffered a lot of backlash, like I've said. And then this was his explanation, because this platform, this outlet, was willing to actually hear him out a little bit. So he said, as for the grin on my face when you have to that... Why can't I read? It's 3 a.m. right now. I'm sorry, guys. When you have that many things happen that fast, that was just my face. I've smiled when drill sergeants yelled at me, he said. Doesn't make any sense. Doesn't even try to make any sense. That was my face. When you're extremely happy when something happens, that was just my face. What? What are you talking about? David also explained why he spoke in such short, monotone voice in the video that I just showed you guys. Blah, blah, blah. He was just clipping it. None of that has helped. David said he asked X artificial program Grok to find all the threats against him. More than 1,000 popped up before the request stopped processing. He made a spreadsheet of these threats. That's not the thing to do. You just turn off the internet. That's all you got to do. You're a soldier anyway. Don't worry about it. You should have something at home that protects you. After an initial public uproar, things started to quiet down until this moment right here where Candace was like, this is sort of crazy. So this is sort of crazy, but the man that cheered after Charlie got shot has actually never been fully identified. He is known only as David. I'm trying to get in touch with him because someone sent me some other relevant footage of him. I would love to know what that footage was. If any of you know what that footage was, please let me know. Anyone know who this is? So then he reveals that after Candace contacted the internet, basically, her sleuths, the CIA, as she calls them, Candace Intelligence Agency, after she did that, a lot of information started popping up. A lot of people started looking into David, and David felt that, of course. David said he wasn't happy with the way Candace tried to contact him, that she could have went through private channels first. She could have easily found me without doing that. I found my account just by searching David Guy Who Cheered. The thing about Candace is it's way easier for her to just put a post out like that and literally get 10,000 tips, 10,000 pieces of information. It's actually way less effective for her to search herself when she can just, you know what I mean? She can also produce her podcast herself, but she has a producer, right? Like that's just the way that goes. It's Candace. What do you expect? Maybe this guy's never watched Candace. He never watched Charlie, apparently, so maybe he's never watched Candace either. David said messages with Owens who really seemed to want to know my personal information. I could only imagine what Candace was asking this guy. She didn't seem to want to hear my side of the story. I think she already had her opinion. It's very interesting. This guy seems to think that people want to hear his side of the story. They want to know If you have military connections, you do. They want to know why you were at the Turning Point event. They want to know how you felt about Charlie. They want to know if you're a part of the thing that happened. Did you help kill him? Obviously, that's what they're looking for. Nobody wants to hear your side of the story. Sadly, because, I'm sure he wanted to tell his side of the story. And there was some leftist shill who was willing to actually hear his side of the story. Who is that guy? I keep forgetting this dude's name. I think his name's Andrew. Channel 5. Is it Channel 5? Channel 5, Andrew Callahan. Yeah. I know some people are like, hey, man, don't call him a leftist shill. But he kind of is when you look into his videos. Kinda. I'm sure he's a nice guy, though. Seems like a nice guy. But I'm positive he did a video with this guy. I'm positive he did. No, he didn't. He did a video with this dude. Look at this. He did a video with this guy, actually. Isn't that weird?
Ever since then, about 3 weeks later, the Trump DOJ said that we should start talking.
Pause it. Thank you. Yeah, he did a video with this guy, actually. He sat down and heard what this guy had to say. Very interesting that he would do that. And this guy just started, he just started talking about Charlie and how Charlie was wrong about this and that. It was such a gross interview to do. But this guy seems to just do weird interviews like that, which, all the power to him. Weird interviews are fun interviews for the most part. I just didn't like it. At the very end, so his daughter, I shouldn't actually laugh because it's his daughter. His daughter doesn't need that. His daughter got kicked out of a homeschool group that she was in because, the person that was running it was like, I don't want any part of you or what's going on with you. She thinks that he's a maniac. His daughter got into another program. And this is the thing that kind of sent me on a little thought process rabbit hole. He says he left the LDS church. Isn't it wild? And he said it right here, just in case you don't believe me. He said it right here. Left in large part because he didn't want to make it unsafe because of the death threats, now considering himself a non-denominational Christian. Isn't it odd that him and George Zinn, both a part of the LDS church, both go to this Charlie Kirk event and both do wildly inappropriate things when Charlie gets shot? Isn't that weird? Both of them part of the same church. One guy has very deep political ties, and the other guy has military ties. Both of them, one guy lets his pants fall to the ground and says, it was me, shoot me, shoot me. That's what he says. And then another guy stands up with a huge smile and screams, USA, USA. Both wildly distracting. One admits that he was a distraction. He was there. He wanted to be a distraction. The other acts like he wasn't there to be a distraction. Very weird. Very, very weird. I got to do an episode on that church, I think. I don't know. It's very weird. I don't know much about it, but pretty wild. But yeah, that's what happened. That's what happened with Candace. You do this about somebody that Candace cares about, and guess what? She's going to want to know your personal information. That's just the way that works. I don't know what to tell you. You can't control that. If she sees you smiling about someone she cares about, buddy, she's coming. She's coming. That's it. She wants to know my personal information. Yeah, of course she does. Obviously. She wants to know if you're a spook. What do you think? She wants to know if you have ties to the agency. Obviously. What do you think Candace wants to know? Anyway, guys, I just found that so funny that Candace actually, and I will say, as much as I don't like that guy and his actions, it does suck that, Candace did that, and then all of a sudden more of the internet backlash popped up for him. I'm sure that sucks, especially when you have no financial incentive towards being known on the internet. It's not benefiting him in any way, but I don't know. Very odd. I still think he's very odd. And she's right. He still hasn't been fully identified. Let me double check, because she wrote that post. Maybe somebody actually responded to that post and actually said more about him. He did an interview, but he's only identified as David. She actually answered somebody. I want lots of footage and testimonials. We do not have 1,000 testimonials along with their video. No, nothing. It's very weird. Nobody has any information on this guy. Losing Charlie is heavy. My actions, okay. So yeah, that's all we have is a random account where he doesn't post much, and his name is David. That's it. You know? Nothing else. I really wonder about that guy. And now that guy's disappeared. George Zinn has disappeared. I mean, what's going on? What's going on with that church? You know, the agency, it's very weird. Do you know the agency recruits from that church? So much so that 80% of the agency is from that church. Mormons? Do you know that? Isn't that weird? I learned that fact the other day and I was like, what? I was like, that can't be real. It's real. It's true. I don't know. I don't even know what to do with that information. I don't know. Stay out of Utah, I guess. Or move there. I don't know. Heavily protected. Or not if you say the wrong thing. Or go against the grain too much. I don't know. Anyways, guys, I just wanted to bring you that information. We are all patiently waiting for Candace. You know, I got to get back to the UFOs. For a lot of people don't know. You're new to the channel. I talk a lot about demons and UFOs and the paranormal and stuff. I got to crack out a couple of those episodes, you know? Just a little reset, a little palate cleanse, if you will. Anyways, guys, just wanted to bring that to you. I'm out of here.